Welcome to my channel where we talk about all things real estate, leadership, and business ownership. No BS, no promos, no sales, just education. If you're ready to take control of your financial future and build real wealth, follow along. I have 5 different deals under contract right now, and when I ask questions about what do you guys need help with, a lot of it's about deal flow. And I will tell you guys, one of the biggest lessons that I learned that has certainly helped me acquire more and more deals is having a smooth deal flow. I want the sellers to feel like this was the easiest transaction they ever had. So obviously, besides just closing the damn deal, like you gotta make sure you have your processes in order. And you not being organized and you not making sure that you can flow through with great communication, great organization, and each step along the way for the seller's sake is your inability to possibly get future deals. So let me walk you through my deal flow. Step number 1. You get the deal under contract, what do? Well, for me, within 24 hours, I'm going to send out an email, and I'm going to have on that email a list of due diligence items. Now, I know that's in the offer to purchase, but it's just super nice for the seller and for you to list out the most important items that you need in the due diligence packet. These are things like rent roll, a P&L, maybe your property taxes, utilities, if there's employees on site, what are their salaries, what do you think of them? You know, I have about 8 to 10 sensitive items that I want to get as soon as possible, so I list those in the email. I also am prepared with the date of inspection. Most inspections have to be conducted within 7 to 21 days, so you want to make sure you pick a date, you pick a time, and you get that in that email right away. Now they know and can confirm the inspection. The last thing that I always want to put in there, besides obviously thanking them, is I want to ensure that I understand the title company that we're using, and then I have wire instruction to get the earnest money out. I know that sounds small, but most people forget that there's like only 3 days to get the earnest money wired out. It's just something the seller shouldn't have to like send you later on or double check with the title company. You make sure you get the title company, you make sure you get the wire instructions, you make sure that you get the receipt and you notify the seller that that's in and in quickly. After that, you should be thinking through what does that due diligence information look like and preparing to look through all the information before inspection. So you're hoping that they're sending you that information, within 24 to 48 hours after you send that email out. And honestly, you already have some of it. If you're an inexperienced investor, you should have the rent roll, you should have the P&L, you should have some of this information anyway. Otherwise, how would you have put the deal under contract? Maybe some of the more experienced investors, if they understand the area, don't need a lot of that information to put the deal under contract, but most will have that. Use that information to really dig into their business. I think one of the most impactful things that you could do is try to understand the business from a financial sense, from a P&L sense. So that way, when you enter in the very next step after you go through the due diligence is the inspection. So now this is where you can think back through that P&L, right? And you want to look at a lot of P&Ls. If you're an inexperienced investor, even if you're not closing on deals, you should be looking at P&Ls, you should be looking at rent rolls, you should be trying to understand and get a feel for the percentage of cost or expenses in certain line items so you could see when there's something wrong. For example, I just did an inspection yesterday, right? And in that inspection or in that P&L, I noticed that common area expenses were really high. I just knew that because I'm looking at them so often. So now when you show up at the inspection, what do you think I'm going to do? I want to check out the common areas. Like, why are they so large, right? Or why are they so expensive? And I found out that they are large. Like, the entire basement of this property was being kept clean and usable space for tenants. Well, you could literally cut off half of the basement, still have storage units, still have laundry, and then not have to clean the other half. Or same with the common areas above that the tenants are going in and out of. So at the end of the day, most people understand that even though the inspection is the next step, and in an inspection, you're trying to make sure that you find the things that are wrong that could be very large expenses for you so that it's not a surprise and you can plan for them. I spend the majority of time now on inspections trying to figure out how or why did this person choose to run the business, i.e. the property, this way. And I try to remember the P&L and the rent roll and all the other due diligence information, and I apply that to what I see. I apply that to what I feel. I even apply that to the conversations that I'm having with the property manager or the live on site person or even the tenants. Maybe I see water really, really high. You could easily ask a simple question during the inspection of, hey, I'm here for an inspection, just wondering if there's anything I can take a look at for you today. Well, you ask that on a dozen units and half of them tell you that they have water leaks, probably why water is really high. And if you fix those water leaks and you're paying for those as a landlord, you should expect your operating expenses to go down. So I could share like 15 to 20 different examples of that, but you got to feel the property. You can't just look at it from a financial sense. After the inspection, I have a rule. Within 24 to 48 hours, I need to sit down with my team. We don't use an inspector, but if you do, you should sit down with an inspector. I sit down with my team and we go through all the things that were wrong with the property. We go through all the things that we want to do differently with the property or the business, and we set up a vision. So that like really early, within like a week of getting a property under contract, I'm already thinking through the vision and setting the vision. I want to do that within 24 to 48 hours because if the seller lied about something, like said they put on brand new roofs and the roofs are 35 years old and need to be replaced, this is where you also want to negotiate rather quickly. So I like to get back to the seller, and I would say it's got to be over 90% of the time, maybe 95. I usually email the seller and say, hey, I'm waiving the inspection contingency. Your property looked great. Thank you very much. I'll let you know when the appraisal is. If that's not the case, that 5 to 10% of the time when you do find things that maybe the seller wasn't aware of, maybe they tried to sweep it under the rug, you want to be able to negotiate those items rather quickly before you or your team has more money spent in the property. So after that though, if there's nothing you're asking for, or even if there is, you negotiate it, you get it done, and then you and your team should be working on that plan that you just came up with. So from right now, you know, if I'm going to rehab all the units, how much is that going to cost, right? How much more in rent are you going to get? You want to know that because I want to quickly be able to put together an as-is financial statement. That's how the property is currently running. And then I want to put together a pro forma. How confidently do I think I can hit that pro forma will be a timeline, right? If this is where I think I can run the property, and this is where it currently stands, now you got to put a time to it. 8 months, 12 months, 18 months, 5 years. Very important to nail that down. Now, you know, during this time, I'll be always thinking about the right bank. For me, I have about 10 to 15 different lenders that I use for different deals. You really want to understand what lender is best for that specific deal. Guys, if you're an inexperienced real estate investor, I promise you, each lender is really good at some things and not really good at others. It's just what they choose to be good at and focus on and what they choose not to focus on. Very few lenders will be able to do it all for you. So you got to realize and find out what those things are so that you understand when you find a deal, you know, I would give the deal to the lender that focuses on the thing that the deal needs the most. And I'm constantly thinking through that. It's probably a video all on its own. But when I know, I'll call that lender. I usually will call 3, and I'll negotiate the best terms possible from those 3 that fit what I need for that deal. Once I decide to negotiate and I get those best terms, I'll rather quickly, obviously, send them all the financials and have them order the appraisal. Appraisals can typically take 2 to 4 weeks. They're coming in a little quicker these days based on the amount of deals that aren't closing or aren't under contract, but you want to get that ordered. While I'm waiting for the appraisal, I am talking to my team again about what are the type of things that we can do while we wait. Most often it's just nailing down the rehab or calling vendors to negotiate a better trash contract, to negotiate a better grass contract, a snow contract. It is figuring out how to maybe put on a roof if it needs a new roof, negotiate a foundation if it needs to do a foundation. You're just basically trying to line up as many things as you can, you know, post-closing. Because I like to close on a deal and really get started. And I feel like a lot of investors, you know, they finish the inspection and they just kind of wait for the appraisal. It's not a time to wait. It's really a time to line things up. So whether you have a bigger team like me or my first 50 units, it was just me, I would do all that myself. And once you buy a few different properties and use a few different vendors, it goes quicker and quicker because you find somebody that you like, you find somebody that does a good job, and you probably find somebody that does it for a fair price, right? So now the appraisal comes along, you do the appraisal. Appraisal comes back. Let's say the appraisal came back exactly what you wanted, or at least at the purchase price. you have the opportunity to now waive, with the bank's blessing, the financial and appraisal contingency. And usually when you do that, there's about a week or two before closing. If this is a 60-day close and you were able to navigate through this process, similar to what I said, just staying on top of everything. So for me, there's about a week or two before close. Now, most investors don't do anything, they just wait for closing, make sure you got the funds ready. I will start executing my plan. If I feel really confident it's going to close, why wouldn't I? So for example, I'll call the seller and I'll say, hey, you have 4 vacancies. Thank you for leaving them vacant. By the way, that's something I usually put in my contract is after the inspection contingency, they cannot do any more leases. I don't want people locked up in a 12-month lease, especially if it doesn't fit my vision. But I'll call up the seller, I'll have them sign a waiver, or I will sign a waiver with my attorney saying that I am liable for everything that happens in this unit. I'll have my insurance company also send something to put insurance on it. Really easy, very economical. And I'll get their approval to start rehabbing a unit or 2 or 27 in some extreme cases. And I will go in there and we'll rehab it. Why? Right? Why would you want to do something like rehabbing a unit? And that's the only thing I'll do. I won't do common areas. I won't put on a roof, just the units. Well, on closing days, I have beautiful pictures, beautiful Matterport, beautiful video, and I can test the market on day 1, right? You don't know, you think you know where market rent is, but you should always go a little above that and see what happens. That allows you to have a really good strategy on future rehabs rather quickly and speeds up the reposition process. So certainly something I'd recommend, especially if you feel confident the deal is going to be closing and a more experienced investor. After you do that, day 1 you close, and now deal flow is over, right? You close the deal. It's exciting. And for me, deal flow ends when I'm signing on the paper, and now the acquisition and operation portion starts. And I'll end it with step number 1 for us is day 1. I'm signing and I'm getting on site, and I usually have a pretty big team, 10, 20, 30 people. If you don't have a team, have your property manager there. If you are doing a roof, have your roofer there. The more presence on day 1 of the property, the better. Feel the property, make sure the residents feel you, change as much as you can to show them that your new strategy is going to take effect and that they're going to love it. So hopefully you like deal flow. I know that was a lot, but you can use sites like Asana, you could use an executive assistant, you can use notes. It's a very repeatable process. So if this did feel overwhelming, listen back through and write down every single step. If you do this 3 or 4 times, it gets easier and easier.